Hi, very good to see all of you. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to listen to this talk, which I guess have many of the keywords that we are hearing today. Feel free as you listen to this webinar to enjoy your lunch, as you hear this out. So my name is Andrew. I'm from SMU. There is a master's program called Masters of IT in Business, MITB course, where we have tracks covering fintech, AI, analytics, and digital transformation track. What I'll be sharing today is a glimpse of a course on technology and sustainability, which is an elective under the digital transformations track. All right, so here we go. Before we start, I would like to engage us by giving us 1 minute to have a chat or to have a read of this little passage here. So that there are some words here which shows how AI can be used for sustainability. So today's context, we are going to use the word sustainability in the area of environmental sustainability. So have a read of this passage here, take about a minute, and Emmeline will help me show a poll, and there'll be some options. And I want us to guess what is the source of this information? Is it from our government's website? Is it from the website of an AI startup where they're applying solutions in sustainability? Or is it a summary of a student's thesis on technology and sustainability? Or is it AI generated? So I'll give us another 45 seconds to have a short read and have a poll of that. And if Emmeline can bring up the poll. I hope you can still see the text when the poll is being displayed. All right, we have some results. It's very good. This shows how some of us have different perspectives on this. And this really shows the convergence of AI and humanity today applied in the area of sustainability. Perhaps all this news about ChatGPT. So it's not surprising that more than half of us indicated that this is AI generated. And it does make a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. Some of us think it's from the government website and also website of AI startup or summary of a student's thesis. So this really shows how just from our responses, we have learned that in today's world, it is not easy to distinguish between AI and humanity. And in today's talk, we will touch a little bit of that at the end, but it's more focused on how can we leverage on AI in terms of sustainability. Thanks, Emmeline. I'll close that poll. I hope all of you were able to see that results. So for the next 15 minutes, we'll end off with about 10 minutes of Q&A, but this is our roadmap for the next 15 minutes. So I hope that it'll be well worth your lunchtime. Okay, it's very easy to find use cases on the application of AI in sustainability. But I do want to lay out the groundwork in terms of providing some problems facing sustainability today. And it is with these problems that we can better see how AI and blockchain, so it's not just AI, but it's blockchain as well, fits and meets some of these key challenges or key problems. We'll then move on to some use cases in food security, renewable energy, smart buildings. And last but not least, individual choices, the choices that you and I make, which plays a big role in the environment. And I want to also provide another side to ChatGPT or large language models, which is the carbon footprint. So we have been all wowed and amazed by the ability of AI-generated text in terms of producing what we just read a moment ago. But there is another side to it from a sustainability angle, which is the carbon footprint of such technologies. And lastly, we'll end about a partnership. So we always talk about or we have this fear of AI replacing jobs, but it could be a nice partnership. Yep. Okay, so let's go. We have a lot to go through, so I hope that I'll be able to finish, at least give you a glimpse of all this in the next 40 minutes or so. All right, so of course, just a brief overview. I was told to just give an overview on sustainability for those of us who may not be so familiar. Many of you would probably have heard of the SDG goals. So there are 17 goals laid out by the United Nations, all right, all the way back from 2015 onwards. And its significance lies in that it's comprehensive. In fact, many of the societal challenges today will fall under some of these goals, right? Maybe just have a go through of the goals in there, 1 to 17. Which ones do you think relate to the physical environment, right? So the obvious ones would be, for example, goal 6, clean water and sanitation. That relates very much to the physical environment, affordable and clean energy, all right? So, and that there is 13, climate action, life below water and life on land, all right? So these will be some of the ones that relate very directly to the physical environment. Some of them which has some relation but may not be so obvious is sustainable cities and communities and responsible consumption. So in some countries where the water is tapped from underground water tables, the way we use water, the way we consume water will affect the environment. In fact, there are some cities where they're sinking because the groundwater, the ground table is sinking lower and lower. Zero hunger, although it relates to hunger, goal number 2, but that relates to the environment as well in terms of agriculture, right? And so the environment also plays sort of a relationship with poverty and with good health and well-being. So anyway, I've just started to lay this out to show you in sustainability, this is one of the framework in which we take reference from. Another framework is called the ESG framework. So you would have heard of this framework. It actually started out from the finance industry. So when a group of investors wanted to find some non-financial metrics, to assess companies, all right? So they came up with this ESG framework. So if you look for jobs in this area, often jobs relating to sustainability will use the term ESG in there. So take note that today's context is more physical environment, but ESG also covers the social and governance as well. So many of us would know that SGX has started to make sustainability reporting mandatory from some industry onwards from this year. And there's a whole effort to sort of facilitate this, facilitate the process of allowing companies to share their ESG information. And there's this portal called ESG Genome, which simplifies, it provides a sort of framework for companies to share their sustainability reporting based on the ESG framework. All right. Right, so now we'll move on to some problems facing sustainability. All right, and we're going to cover these 4 problems. All right, this taken from a research paper. The research paper covers a couple more problems, but I'm just going to highlight in flash of 4 over here. So first is a problem of knowing. So it's problem of knowing, problems of evaluation, communications, and institutions. So first is the problem of knowing. So what I mean by problem of knowing is, do you know how much environmental impact is associated with some of the products you buy or food you consume, right? So we are sort of aware of we know that some products we buy has more negative influence to the environment as compared to others, and for example some food as well. So we know that beef has a very high carbon footprint, right? But do we know exactly how much carbon emissions is from, say, for example, if we take that 250 gram of steak, do we know exactly how much carbon is being released into the environment because of that. So while we have an idea, but to be able to calculate the exact figures and the exact amounts is very difficult, because it goes through a whole supply chain, and it's a very complex ecosystem there, right? So if we fail to, or if it is hard to provide a precise calculation on impacts of the environment, right, the cost of unsustainability will not be factored into the pricing of the products or the food that we buy, right? And so this is one of the main problems of sustainability. So we are not aware, although we want to make more sustainable solutions, but we are not aware. Okay, we're not aware of what's the exact cost. So this puts sustainable costs and goods and services at a disadvantage, because obviously in many cases it will cost more to provide more sustainable goods and services, and so they would be at a disadvantage, if these exact emissions are not factored in there, right? And another aspect of knowing is that we are able to measure global temperatures, but it's very hard, for example, to attribute the emissions across countries or even firms, right? So this is another aspect of this whole problem of knowing. And there's a problem in valuation. So if you look at this, give us 10 seconds. Let's see whether we can identify. I think this will sort of show our age, but no, don't worry, I won't ask you to poll for your age. But some of us may be able to recognize this. All right, so this is the Singapore River some time back, all right, in the 1970s, when it was very polluted, right? And of course, our late Prime Minister, he had a vision of cleaning up, the Singapore River. And in 1987, it was when there was the first achievement of pure water. And today, I'm not sure whether, in fact, you would have gone there. I have some young children, so I remember there were times I would bring them to Marina Barrage to fly kite over there, and it's such a nice environment today, and we have the Marina Barrage, which is really very much, beyond a place for recreation. It's a water catchment area as well. It helps in our flood control as well. Okay, so the problem of evaluation relates to how do we quantify, right? How do we quantify the value when we spend efforts, resources to clean up the Singapore River, right? And is that, are we able to quantify the value in which, for example, the increased social, ecological influences? So not just for the environment, but if you think in terms of the recreational benefits that it brings to the country as well. And this is not just Marina Barrage. I mean, this is also for other parks, the Ang Mo Kio Bishan Park, MacRitchie Reservoir. These areas of cleaning up, opening up green spaces. It brings about benefits. It brings about even influences the mental well-being of our population, right? Of you and me. And is there a value that we can put to it? Is there a value? Obviously, we can measure value in terms of how much foreign investment are brought to Singapore, but these are factors which contribute to attracting companies, individuals to Singapore. So are we able to provide a value for that? So that is the problem of evaluation. Even if we provide such massive sustainable projects like this, can we provide a precise value to its benefits across different areas, right? So that's not problem number 2, problem of evaluation. Right, so the third problem is communication. We are all bombarded by advertisements, the latest phone, the latest gadgets especially. And in order to make sustainable-minded mindsets, all right, we will have to face the bombardment of this sort of lure of consumer goods, all right? And there's research to show that we have underlying human tendency to believe that we are sort of not bounded, by the physical constraints. I believe the last few years we are experiencing more and more the reality of climate change. But we're actually fighting against an innate human tendency to not only believe that we're not bounded by some of these boundaries, but even as we are, we have a tendency to focus on short term. So we have a tendency on just focusing on our current lives, maybe without sparing a thought for future generations. So there's research to show all this as well. So this is the third problem, the problem of communication. Okay, the fourth problem is problems of institutions, right? So, and you have some resource management areas such as public forests, where all this, has to be managed by the government. So in some countries, especially, you face corruption, and even if there's no corruption, there might be some centralized institutions. When I mean centralized institutions, governments will be one of them. There is also a lack of capacity to enforce rules. So, for example, just a very relevant example to all of us is in terms of the haze, right? So even if we were to know which companies or which farms are the one causing the haze, but to be able to enforce that, it's not a trivial matter, right? Okay, so let me just take a quick time check. Okay, time is passing very fast. So we're going to go into AI and blockchain. So I want to share about some of the contributions and share some of the use cases. So the main contributions for AI is to be able to sense. So if you come back to the problems that we have laid out, one of the problems is being able to know, problems of knowing what are the carbon footprint, of some of the goods and products. So being able to sense is where AI can come in. Being able to predict, all right, later we'll look at some use cases in terms of predicting the energy efficiency of smart buildings. Being able to optimize, so when a system has many parameters to optimize, to control, for example, our air conditioning systems in our system, that's where AI can contribute to come and optimize the best parameters. And to model, so in terms of model, and this is in the area of discovering new materials. So for example, finding better materials for our photovoltaic or solar panels, this is where AI can come in as well. Okay, so blockchain, three main areas for blockchain: trustless. So it means that we do not need to know each other and we can still work together because it provides a trustless system. Immunity basically means that it's not easy to change the information in a blockchain, and smart contracts where there's automation of transactions. So when I mention about blockchain, this is where one of the problems is the problems of institutions. So when decentralized institutions fail or there's some limitations, so this is where blockchain can come in and to provide an alternative. Okay, so one of the first use cases is in the area of agriculture and forest. One of the main areas to take note here is that trees, and especially peatlands. So peatlands absorbs, and trees absorb a lot of carbon. So one of their purpose is, we know that carbon in the atmosphere causes global temperature rises. So being able to absorb, and the technical term is called sequestration, being able to absorb the carbon is a key part. And that's where deforestation comes in, right? Deforestation, we want to manage deforestation. So AI technology can come and provide some of this. These are some of the areas in terms of managing agriculture and forest. So let's drill a little bit further into this remote sensing of emissions. So we talk about the problems of knowing. So knowing what is the size of the forest, how much carbon is it able to store, or for example, knowing whether there is deforestation happening. All right. So these are areas where it's very hard to have a precise measurement, and that's where AI can come in. And one of the methods is through applying AI images, satellite images, to provide some of these proxies or information. Right? Just off the cuff, there was this project was very inspired where they used second-hand handphones, all right, to detect deforestation through using AI to recognize the sound of saw chains in the forest. And that's where they can detect deforestation in places. Otherwise, it's very hard to have your rangers or your scouts to be all over the entire area of big areas of forest to detect deforestation, right? So peatlands are very important because peatlands or mangrove, and we have some mangroves in Singapore, they capture more carbon, than the usual forest, right? Precision agriculture is something that I will share a little bit more now. Okay, so I wanted to also flesh out some of the local companies, local expertise that we have in food security. So AgriOn is a startup where they use blockchain So if you remember the benefits of blockchain is able to provide a platform where it allows multiple parties, stakeholders who may not even know each other to collaborate together and to share information which is immutable, meaning they can trust what's in the blockchain. Okay, it's not easily changed. So with this, it allows farmers to be able to sort of share their type of fertilizer use, where they are, information about how they do their farming. And this helps them to get access to the loans where many of them require, especially small-scale farmers, all right? So with all this information, it provides, facilitates sustainability scoring, okay, which can inform investors and consumers, all right? I was back in one of the areas in farming as well. This point is not in the slides, but besides the idea of capturing carbon, but the use of fertilizers, all right? So the nitrogen is very much needed in the soil to grow crops. And because of industrialization, when we do farming on a large scale, we need artificial fertilizers, artificial nitrogen. And where there is too much of this in the system, this nitrogen flows out into the oceans, into the waters, and it pollutes and it causes negative influences to the environment as well, right? So to be able to empower small-scale farmers is a very good thing. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that small-scale farmers are always doing the right thing, because last week I was just back from a social enterprise in Vietnam where this community of farmers, they are trying to spread the use of organic fertilizers, all right? And even for small-scale farmers, they often use pesticides as well, all right? So that doesn't mean that only the big players are using the manufactured fertilizers. Another example, we have heard about the rising popularity of urban farms, right? So the rooftops of HDB car parks, for example, are turned into farms. So there's this startup called Abby Farm, where they use IoT, all right, to be able to sense how the crop is doing, and to be able to also automatically trigger nutrients, okay, into the system. Many of them use hydroponics, where you can trigger the nutrients into the water, which then gets into the plants, right? So these are some examples of some local startups. Okay, in the area of renewable energy, so one key thing to take note here is in terms of renewable energy, or in terms of any energy grid, the supply must equal to the demand, all right? So if we bring in renewable energy, right, this makes it tricky. And one of the challenge is because renewable energy are variable, all right? Be it in Singapore, we have a very high cloud cover, all right? So as we look into more and more photovoltaic farms or energy, right, their supply, the energy that is supplied from them, is not constant, okay? So one of the ways to mitigate this variability is storage. So just last year, we have batteries, okay, that can store up to 200 megawatts of power, okay, which can power about 16.7K of 4-room HDB flats, all right? So that's one way to mitigate it. Another way to mitigate it is using AI to be able to predict the demand and supply. So both for supply, you can use AI to sort of forecast how much energy are you using, all right, based on different factors such as weather, the time of the year. But obviously today, we are experiencing variability in the weather as well, so it makes it even more challenging. If it's more challenging for humans, that's where perhaps AI can come in and find some patterns, right? So to be able to predict how much energy are we able to get from renewable sources, all right? And at the same time, we can also we can also apply technology for the demand side. So in an urban country like Singapore, all right, so there are many buildings. Okay, so buildings actually account for a quarter of the global energy-related emissions, right? And buildings is very interesting to look at because there's some easy to implement fixes, all right? We can reduce the emissions by up to a high percentage, right? And some of the ways in which the buildings, energy in the building can optimize. That's where AI can optimize the different areas, can predict, for example, room occupancy. All right, so to be able to adjust what we call the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, okay, HVAC systems, to be able to adjust it in optimum way. All right, and by the way, this HVAC systems consume more than half of the energy in our buildings. Right? So it'll be able to forecast temperatures and also be able to detect faults in the system. So again, an example of a local startup, okay, Zendian. So Bill is a visionary leader, and he wanted to set up a consultancy firm in the area of data. Okay, with a local born startup. And so one of the products or one of the areas that I've gone into is called the Zendian Estate. So their idea is to optimize energy. So as you can read there, it uses machine learning to adjust a building's HVAC, okay, to optimize the energy consumption without compromising the indoor air quality and comfort, all right? And to be able to detect and to predict equipment faults as well, okay? So Keppel is one uses their platform, all right, to centralize their control centers, right, where from a central control, the staff can sort of monitor live data. Okay, we come to this aspect or area called individual actions. Okay, this is very interesting because at the end of the day, you know, companies can do their part and they will make a big difference, but it also boils down to us as consumers, right? Also boils down to us as consumers, where our own efforts, your effort and my efforts collectively, we can have a significant impact on mitigating global sources, right? So AI can also help to identify our behaviors. So coming back to the problems of sustainability. So if you remember, one of the problems is the problems of knowing, right? So how much carbon footprint am I emitting from the food that I consume, from the products that I buy, or even from my mode of transportation, right? So there are some carbon footprint calculators out there, but they're at quite a high level, all right? So to take a step further, you know, a lot of all this information is actually captured in for example, our bills, what we buy, or when we take a trip, okay, whether is it a leisure or business trip, you know, flight information, all right? And this is where there's an area of AI or technology where natural language processing is trying to understand the text, can provide some information to meet the problems of knowing and also evaluation as well, right? And if you see point C, you know, customized interventions can then be provided to households. Right? Okay, so let's going to give us a minute. So let's sort of estimate how many trees. So the average Singaporean, how many trees is needed to absorb the carbon footprint of someone who stays in Singapore? Okay, thanks for your responses. So all of you are very well informed, between 300 to 400 trees. Okay, I'm not sure whether in the background you use some calculators or you just chose the biggest number. So again, I use ChatGPT to produce this answer, and it doesn't just provide the answer, right? It actually provides some context and provides more information, you know. So the average Singaporean average person who stays in Singapore has about 8.4 tons of carbon dioxide, all right? It even mentions the source of the information for this. And it also makes sort of disclaimer to say that the amount of carbon dioxide a tree can absorb depends on various factors, okay, such as the species of this tree. So it's a pretty robust response, right? And it gives you the calculation, right? So based on 8.4 tons of CO2 a year, okay, and how a mature tree absorbs 22 kilograms, it's about 382. Okay, so congratulations to all of you who have chose between 300 to 400 trees. So, you know, just for awareness, each one of us who are living in Singapore, it takes for our average carbon emission, it takes 382 trees, okay, to absorb that our carbon footprint. All right, so that's not a small amount, right? So this is a good use. In fact, we have talked about how the use of ChatGPT, a lot of discussions currently surround education and many other areas, but have you thought about using it for sustainability? And I did not plan this, but let me do a quick demo, all right? On, you know, you can even use it for perhaps more targeted responses. So for example, what is my, I hope all of you can see my typing. What is my carbon footprint in traveling from, you can, so I'm going to give it a challenge, right? I'm going to give it even exact places from Bedok to Jurong using a 1.6 liter car, all right? So let's see whether, without even mentioning that this is in Singapore. So let's see what's the response from our AI model. Okay, so it indicates that, yeah, the carbon footprint involves various factors: distance traveled, type of vehicle, and that's why I indicate the 1.6 liter, right? So it's able to estimate the distance between Bedok and Jurong is approximately 22 kilometers. Okay, it provides your car's fuel efficiency, 12 kilometers per liter, which is reasonable. All right, you need 1.83 liters of fuel. Okay, and this will release 4.3 kilograms of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. All right. So my point here, okay, without getting into too much of the details, is that, you know, perhaps we can even use AI to find out more about our carbon footprint, to find out more about our personal behaviors. All right. Okay, so that's I'm going to stop there and to carry on. Okay. Okay. You know, the biggest gap, just 10 seconds, you know, where is the biggest distance in the world? You know, is it between North and South Pole? Okay, just think about this question. Where is the greatest distance in the whole world? Okay, so one aspect or one perspective is that the greatest distance is between our head and our hearts. If we use our hearts to represent our actions, all right? So awareness doesn't lead to transformation. Awareness does not automatically lead to change, all right? There is a gap in between our awareness and our actions, all right? And so AI also comes in to try to narrow this gap, all right? And this particular research, it uses a generative AI model in terms of images. So we're not talking about text, but we're talking about images. Okay, it's able to go through a series of steps to help you to visualize your local neighborhood. How your local neighborhood look like if it was flooded, all right? And so I've used this to sort of do some visualization, both on Orchard. So the image on the left is Orchard. If you recognize Orchard Ion on the left, and on the right is Wheelock Place. Okay, and the image on the right is a HDB flat. So imagine if you walk down, you know, and your HDB flat looks like this. So there's also AI research where it helps us to bridge the gap between knowing and action. You know, so the aim of this is to drive urgency. All right, to drive urgency as to the realities of climate change, right? Okay, so just very quickly, we are talking a lot about the AI use cases so far. So I just want to have another aspect of ChatGPT. ChatGPT actually is a language model, and language model is not that new. Okay, one of the landmark paper is this paper called "Attention is All You Need." It was published in 2013. This led to the emergence of language models. All right, and one of the key aspect of this paper. So for example, if you read these words here, the animal didn't cross the street because it was too tired, right? And if you look at the column on the right, what does it refers to, right? So it is very difficult for machines, okay, to know what does it refers to, okay? And so the intuition here is that this attention is all you need. It is a transformer model, okay? It provides a way for machines to be able to estimate or to predict what does it refers to, all right? So this is a key aspect in terms of understanding text, okay? So this model, out from this paper, it overcomes some limitations. So there are some models in the past. So some of you who are not aware of this area, whether it's your RNN model, recurrent neural network model, RSTN, you can do some of this, but this transformer model provides you a way to parallelize. Okay, meaning in layman terms, meaning we're able to do some of this in a parallel fashion. Okay, we do not need to do it in a sequential fashion, which means the layman terms is we can train the model based on more data than ever. Okay, based on more data than ever, and that is what led to the emergence of the language model. So if you see this trend here, just look at the ChatGPT is actually based on enhancement of the GPT-3, which was launched in 2020. All right, but just look at in how from 2018 to 2020, number of words used for training billion. So let me find my highlighter here. All right, so if you look at number of words used for training, this column here, right, it rose from 3, okay, from 3 billion, okay, to 500 billion in just a span of a few years. All right, and the number of parameters is what we use to train the model. And so, and this graph just shows, we have a deep learning era. So we have heard about deep learning, which was some time back. Okay, so been used for over 10 years. But with this large scale model, and deep learning already consumes a lot more data. All right, but for the language model, it opened up a large scale era where we are able to process a lot more information, and thus there is a leap in terms of the computation needed. And it is this computation where there's a carbon footprint behind this computation. All right. So this is a survey of some research papers, right? Where in the research field, often the sole objective is accuracy, right? Where we did not consider the environmental impacts. Okay, but today, more and more so, I think there's more emphasis on more awareness of green AI. It's just the beginning, but green AI basically means to consider the environmental impact and not just going after efficiency or accuracy of AI. Okay, so these are just some areas that we can mitigate. So to have new norms for publication beyond accuracy, perhaps in the development of AI or the development of technology, let's also consider the carbon footprint. All right, so with that can come certifications and regulations. All right, so in terms of the compute, okay, so I did not really emphasize on the environmental impact, but this compute will often be done in data centers, in servers in data centers, and the electricity that they consume. Okay, there are emissions associated with the data centers. These emissions will differ from different regions, so to be able to schedule the AI compute to different regions, that is a way to mitigate the carbon footprint of AI. All right, and also to scrutinize the data that we're feeding these models. Okay, that's another mitigation area. Okay, and also to account for the positive impact. So I've shared about how there is a negative impact, but of course, all this positive impact that I've just shared, we should consider them as well. Okay, so I'm going to skip this because of time. So just to know that, when we talk about blockchain for proof of work, especially, there is a carbon footprint associated with it as well. Okay, I want to end with a last note, where a partnership between AI and humanity, right? And I'll take us through sort of quick exercise, right? I'm going to show us 18 letters in the next screen, all right? Sorry, 15 letters. And after I show us the 15 letters, I'm going to show 2 boxes, all right? 2 boxes. And let me know what were the letters in those boxes, all right? So are you ready? Okay, I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. So these are the 15 letters. Have a good stare. Okay, I'm going to flash out 2 boxes and let me know what were the letters in those boxes. You will not see these 15 letters after that. Okay, so last 4 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so what letter was in this box, right? So give us a bit of time to recall what letter was in this box. We're able to remember. In the second box, what letter was this box? Okay, so all of you who said MO, congratulations. You have remembered correctly. Not all the blood is in your stomach digesting your lunch. Okay, let's have another round. Okay, so have a good stare again at these letters. Okay, yeah, I wonder how many of you are having lunch right now. So wonder what you're eating. Okay, now these two letters, A. Okay, AR. Okay, when I showed you the letters, many of us are familiar with short-term and long-term memory. But when I show you the boxes, when you first saw the letters, they were in your sensory memory. But when I show you the boxes, they help focus your attention on the letters, right? And when I tried to ask you about your lunch, I was trying to distract you. Okay, I was trying to distract you as a little exercise. Okay, so my point here is that in humans, it's actually easy for us to sort of pay attention. But for machines, okay, we have this paper, and it is not easy for machines to pay attention to what, for example, this word "eat" is referring to. So there are some tasks which are very intuitive to humans in terms of energy efficiency. We take much lesser energy to do that, right? So attention is actually a very key word in both humanity and AI as well. All right. So I hope that I just wanted to end on that note. So it's not either or, but it's really how do we partner with AI, making use of its advantages and also appreciating the uniqueness of humanity to work towards sustainability. All right. So once again, my name is Dr. Andrew Koh. I'm from the MITB program, a faculty in SMU. Okay, and this is a very slight introduction to one of the courses under the digital transformation track, but it's also available to all tracks in MITB, all right, which talks about digital technologies and sustainability. Okay, thank you for your attention. I'm going to go to this slide. Let me take a look at the questions. Okay, so the first question, thanks, Mingwei. So the problem of evaluation. So the word evaluation was used, but if I use another term, which is sustainability reporting, I think that's also related to that. First of all, the measurement. Okay, the measurement. And you're right. So in terms of template, it is a big thing. There are global frameworks in terms of sustainability. You have your GRI and several other global frameworks. So SGX, when they make sustainability reporting mandatory for some industries, they know that this will be very onerous. In fact, today, many companies are going to consultants to provide the sustainability reporting for them. All right. And one of the purpose of launching the SGX Genome Project is to provide a framework where it would simplify the way sustainability reporting is done. All right. And from that, is related to evaluation then. So these are efforts made by SGX to provide a template to make the sustainability reporting to simplify it. Okay. David, since AI will replace millions of jobs. Yeah, so David, this is a question which many of us are asking, right? So if you look at history, industrialization, there's an evolution of jobs. So obviously there will be some transition, and these transitions have to be managed carefully. But however, if we look at factories, for example, even today, you need factory supervisors. So today, when an AI system is down, you still need a human to come and fix it. AI system is not able to provide the framework, the framing. So what we did today is we went through some problems, right? We went through how the framing of what the problems faced by sustainability and how can AI solutions meet it. I mean, this is very much a very much human process, to be able to frame a problem is something that AI can't do that well yet, right? So there will certainly be like how there are still some factory supervisors today, or even farm supervisors. We talk about precision engineering. We talk about using AI in farms, whether it's farm supervisor or the factory supervisor, they're still there. Okay. So I think there will be a transition. There will be a transition, but it will be an evolution as well. Many years ago, the books are all hand copied. Books are all hand copied until the emergence of the Gutenberg press, which made printing possible. So the scribes would have all lost their jobs. Scribes would have all lost their jobs. So there would be an evolution and of some jobs, right? So David, another question from you: heard of AI becoming sentinel and desiring to go beyond the boundaries? Okay. So the ownership of AI is a big topic, all right? So who owns the technology? That would be one of the factors to look into your own hands. But as of today, in terms of AI taking over entire systems, that's more of the movies at the moment, all right? So today, AI often used in systems where it's a narrow, specific purpose, right? Very much we have control over that. Okay. The surveillance is the main thing. So the surveillance is where the privacy issues are real issues that we very need to be careful of to preserve the privacy of individuals. Yeah, so I also saw the news that we're tapping into renewable energy for Leicester from Australia. I've not heard any news otherwise, so I would assume that the project is still on, but obviously it will take time because you need to build the submarine cables to channel the power over here. Okay. Yeah, so for water, I won't have the deep expertise in there, but beyond reservoir, I believe our nation is having multiple approaches to provide for water sustainability, right? And part of it is also our consumption as well. So we often talk about the supply, but again, the idea of renewable energy balancing the supply and demand can be applied here as well. So we can also watch out for how do we consume water. Okay, calculation by ChatGPT verified. So this is a good question. Sometimes if we answer the same question, you might get different responses. So we have to be careful when we use ChatGPT that we cannot assume that its answer is always valid. All right. Yeah. So this is the same as the next question. Whether the answer provided by AI is correct. Okay. So we cannot assume. That's one danger of such language models. All right, because as compared to Google search, where it provides a list of results where you can choose which source to browse through, this simply gives a single answer, and where we need to be careful on its validity. Yeah, so regarding the number of trees, 6 million people, 400 trees. So it's not just in Singapore. So often when we talk about carbon credits, they are also we can grow trees in other countries to offset it, and there are also plantations in other countries where they hold a lot of carbon credits. Where they grow trees and they sell the carbon credits to you. Yeah, so the SDG goals for Jennifer is the goals is 2030. In fact, one additional point to this is that we are falling short. Okay, we are falling short to meet these goals, and each of these goals has very specific targets. In fact, if you look at the Department of Statistics for Singapore, we do report the statistics for Singapore and how are we doing. All right, and we are falling short, and that is where in the beginning there wasn't a very great emphasis on digital technologies, but in the last few years, within the UN there is a body set up to look at how digital technologies can help in the goals. All right, so we are lagging, and digital technologies can play a key part in helping us to catch up. Okay, for Gina, I'm not sure sustainability reporting. Yeah, so there are many templates. There's global templates, and what I just elaborated at the front in the beginning was SGX has provided a template based on the ESG framework called core metrics. Okay, for challenges, we have gone through. Yeah, I think the problems of knowing evaluation, problems of knowing is probably the first step. So that's probably the biggest challenging, because before we can evaluate, we will need to know first. All right. So the problems of knowing, I would say, is probably one of the bigger ones. Okay. Got a few minutes, so I'll try my best. We'll not be able to go through every other question. Okay, so that's the biggest challenge. So Gina, Singapore context. So various websites. I'm not sure what the resource that you're referring to. I guess resources associated with digital technology or sustainability. So you know, in different there are reports provided by consultancy firms. Okay, there's research papers, academic papers. So often in academic papers, we read of certain new methods, and so some of the industry practices come up from there. And use cases, use cases. UN would have some resources as well, but often UN's resources are more on a global level, right? So for the more local updates, government startup, websites, startup websites, information that you go there. I think specifically use cases. Yeah. So a variety of information. Obviously, our news as well. So previously someone mentioned about the tapping onto renewable from Australia. That was from the news. Okay, so that Louis, there seems to be strong cultural differences in terms of fear or affinity between the West and Japan. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure how general your statement is. I think one thing about fear is that you are often more fearful of the unknown, right? So in the more you know about AI, the more you know about its weaknesses as well, in areas where it cannot overcome. So I think if you rely on movies to sort of you learn all about AI from movies, then that's where you'll be the most fearful, right? So I don't think it's so much of between the West or Japanese or the Eastern countries, but it's more of the awareness of technology. How aware are you? Okay, so for Suzanne, your question about whether ChatGPT can be fake news, yes, it can be, because one aspect which I've not mentioned yet, remember that such models are trained on data, trained on existing data. So there's existing fake news out there on the internet. It's trained. One of the sources is based on the internet. Okay, so basically, the intuition behind the model is trying to predict the next word. It's trying to predict the next word given your prompt and your initial sentences. So it's trained on data which on news out there which are not true as well. So yes, it can be capable of that fake news. Okay, so for Louis, again, I don't think it's either oppressors or tools. I think it can be both. I've highlighted through this talk that there are areas that we should be concerned about with regards to AI or technology, but at the same time, it's also a tool as well that can complement whatever you want to do. All right. I've got no recommendation for the app, but I do know that we have a local bank who calculates your carbon footprint based on your spending and your credit card, right? So that's one of the options. The SP Power also has a calculator, so there's some of them. Okay, I've not tried this. Okay, so this is a very specific question, specific problem. Okay, so I've not tried that yet, so I'm not trying to venture that to answer that question, right? The last one, yes, it's only been trained on data up to 2021. So this is another aspect where we have to be careful. Okay, not take it as the oracle, right? Not take it as the oracle for all truths in the universe. Okay, so with that, I will end off. It's exactly 1 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. It's good to meet all of you.